Today, while Daryl and Jesse are working on a fix for the broken bolt in the drive coupling, I thought we'd do something a bit interesting because we've got sort of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be able to work on a vehicle that's got 100% original from the factory parts, and to be able to follow period correct instructions on how to set up all the steering, brakes and foot brake. Where does that happen on YouTube, where everything falls into place on such a special vehicle like this? So pay attention, all right? We'll run through it just as if I was a raw recruit that's given the job of doing a brake adjustment. Got myself some universal steering adjusting tooling. Let's see how complicated they make this for the operator. At least the driver's position is pretty comfortable. There's support brake, and then the main steering brakes, and then there's adjustment of the foot brake, and then trying to make sure that the tillers work roughly in the same positions. That's the plan of attack. All right. And of course, a shout out to Dimitri for hooking us up with these priceless instructions. So that's the braking unit that controls the torque flow through the planetary system. So in the default position, the planetaries are locked so the drive is transmitted directly to the final drive and out to the tracks to move the vehicle forward. The amount of clamping force that's on the support brake is important, because if the planetary slips, the vehicle ain't going to move. It's especially critical when you're trying to turn the vehicle to one side, because you'll have drive unlocked and you're really depending on the opposing side to be able to push the tank around. You definitely don't want any slippage. Left and right adjustment is exactly the same, which is excellent. They really want to cover all the bases. So step one is to make sure the steering levers are pushed all the way forward. I guess that makes sense, doesn't it? Turn lower lock nut back. One full turn. Back the nut off one full turn. It's actually quite a bit of adjustment. Pull the steering lever back to the third tooth, counting from the front. 1, 2, 3. So this one. 1, 2, 3. 3. Third tooth. Upper adjusting nut should be tightened until slight resistance is felt when repeatedly pushing steering lever forward. Slight resistance, I'm guessing that's probably this assembly here with the cam. That feels like a slight resistance. Hold the upper adjusting nut and tighten the lower lock nut firmly. Slight resistance is caused by the cam lever pressing on the roller. Curve and Hebel, such a descriptive language. German, isn't it? Especially technical German. Okay. Okay. So I've nipped them up. Okay, set it back again to the third tooth. Now I've got to do a clearance test after that. So it's talking about tilting the upper brake shoe backwards. We're aiming for a 0.6 millimeter clearance between here. So this is 100% live reaction here. I'm following the instructions and doing something that probably hasn't been done for more than 80 years. 0.6 of a millimeter clearance on the support brake. So it says if the required clearance is not achieved, repeat steps 1 to 5 of the adjustment process. Alright, well that one's done. So tilt the lower brake shoe. We're looking for a 0.6 of a millimetre clearance on that as well, yep. Now it's got a bit of a caveat here that when doing steps 7 and 8, if the clearance is too large, the upper adjusting nut must be tightened when readjusting. If the clearance is too small, then it must be loosened and the automatic adjustment reset. Well, let's look. So tilt bottom shoe. How would you look at that? 0.6 of a millimetre. Just double check. I'm gobsmacked. When does that ever happen? When was the last time you even trying to assemble some bloody IKEA furniture that you actually got the instructions to work properly, huh? After adjusting steering lever, release it and let it move forward under its own spring tension without force. The tiller should return to the normal position. Looks pretty good to me. So this is an automatic adjuster, they call it, that's set to give a preload of 60 to 65 kilos. So the idea is to hold the bottom shoe in the right position so that when it grabs on the cam assembly with the steering tiller, that it clamps it all together, so you're not relying on one shoe clamping first and then pulling on the second one. So you want a nice progressive engagement of the two brake shoes together. And then the last thing they say is that these items here, catch plates, should be greased or cleaned regularly to catch the metallic dust that comes off it. Great, so let's move on to the next thing. Right hand side. It's 0.6. Oh, miracles of miracle. That's 0.6 as well. Beautiful. Right, so the next step, checking the adjustment of the foot brake. Steering tiller is in normal position. And the critical dimension here is that it should be 60 millimetres between the fork crowns. It could either be that, or it could be between here and here. I'm thinking it's probably more between here and here. One is left hand thread and one is right hand thread. Alright, so it's 60 millimetres. So I'm playing footsies with the brake mechanism. What's next? Next task is to back off the left and right steering brakes by several turns, both upper and lower adjusting nut. 1, 2, and 2. One, 2. 1, 2. And clamper setting block or setting block gauge between the foot brake pedal and the shaft. And that's native speakers would be able to confirm. So Einstellholz, adjustment wood. These are all translations that I've done myself, so no idea if it's correct. No idea how long this thing should be. That's lost to the sands of time. Methinks the pedal should be supported roughly where you'd want maximum travel to be. So you don't want it on the floor and on its mechanical stop. You want it so that it's probably back a little bit from that. Making use of a block of wood I prepared earlier. There's a setting gauge. Maybe that's a good starting point. Well, let's give that a go. So after loosening the lock nuts off, tighten the corresponding upper adjuster nuts evenly and gently until the upper and lower brake shoes contact with the brake drums. The lower lock nut must still be able to move freely. Upper adjusting nut gently, lower adjusting nut so you can still turn freely. Let's repeat that on the other side. Okay. Release the brake setting block. So upper brake shoes tilt should be 1.3 millimeters. If there is too little clearance, the upper adjustment screw has been tightened too much. Okay, so that's way too much. Like putting together IKEA furniture and things like that, you shouldn't skip instructions. Backing off the brakes before setting the brake pedal position was a tactical mistake. I've got a few different thickness gauges to use for setting the brake pedal position because I think that's critical to getting the brake shoe adjustment done properly, so let's do it right. Alright, so that's a more appropriate position, methinks. Let's restart the brake adjustment procedure. Back off, lower several turns. Now what do the instructions say? Turn down until shoe lightly contacts. Upper and lower nut still turns. Remove special wooden adjusting block. Tilt upper and lower brake shoes. Alright, so that's 1.3 there. Incredible. 1.3 there. Just tremendous. So let's have a look to see position of the tiller. It's probably not important to show you, but I'll give it a go anyway. Watch these pivots here. So this is the lower and upper steering brake shoes while I operate the steering tiller. what's really pleasing is the way the upper and lower brake shoes are pretty well synchronized when it comes to closing in together, so they're pulling in at the same time. So it sort of says to me that we're going to get good grip on it and good control. Nip that up. A few little finishing touches just to round it off. Some original and some reproduction locking tabs. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that, so that gives you a little bit of a scary insight into what I define as a good time. I can say that if you happen to be tinkering with your Panzer II or Panzer II chassis derivative, that the brake and steering setup instructions are 100% Armour approved. I've got very high confidence that when we take it for its first proper drive, that it's going to work just fine. One last thing, look carefully for both outer steering brakes as I tickle the brake pedal. You would see how both of the brake shoes are literally moving in perfect synchronicity. Quite remarkable, especially when you compare that to the systems used in the American Sherman-based equipment and of course the Soviet era stuff. Quite remarkable.